Hi, hello, and welcome to this episode of Hardstuck. I'm your host, Nick Thug Nasty Lavid, joined with Justin, Meta Pusher Wilkes, and Jay, 704 Not Found Burkholder. And today we're going to be talking about a wide range of esports events that happened over this past weekend. Everything from the get ready for it mouthful, Optic, Texas, Minor, Bracket. And Valorant Masters Bangkok finishing up this past weekend as well, along with a few other surprises if we have enough time. Let's get right into it. T1, if you haven't already seen, took home the trophy for Valorant Masters Bangkok after going Game 5 against G2. Couldn't ask for a much better series. Jay, do you think T1 won, or do you think G2 lost?
See, it's tough, because G2 has come a long way, right? They won in 8 kickoffs. It's a long story to get here, and this story is great. They've only lost to EDG in the Swiss, and they even 2-0 EDG when they face them again, just to reach T1, who also, by the way, 2-0'd EDG in their second matchup. So it's kind of insane, right? The storyline builds itself of T1 becoming this underdog and upsetting everyone, especially their Korean neighbors, DRX. But G2 has everything to lose, and what do? They do, in fact, lose it. They throw it away. They even tweeted saying, setting them up for failure, saying, look at this trophy. It's going to look good in our trophy cabinet.
Wow.
How cocky can you get just to, in the finals, lose it out to T1? But I actually think T1 won it. I don't think G2 lost it. I think T1 just plain and simple played better Valorant overall.
I like that. Justin, what do you think?
I think that it's both. I think that T1 definitely won. You know, last week on the show, I picked them as a team to watch. I actually thought they were going to lose to EDG, but they managed to pull it out, run it all the way back. I didn't think they were going to make it all the way, but they did.
Yeah.
But I do have to admit that G2, I think, missed that opportunity. That Game 4, when Buzz was, like, absurdly negative and just completely useless on the Raze, I really felt like that was the one where G2 had the win, kind of dropped the ball there. So as much as I want to say they did win it, because absolutely in Game 5, T1 was the best team, not even really close. I really feel like G2 was the better team and should have won that in 4.
Yeah, and speaking of one bad game, Leaf had, to be honest, everything that I've heard over the past 24 hours since it ended was, Leaf had a terrible final series. If you look back at the stats, he only had one bad game, and it was, unfortunately, the Game 5, and that's what he'll be remembered for. Some other crazy stats to throw out as I was looking back at some things. G2, if you look at individual rounds throughout the entire series, won 62 rounds. T1 only won 60. So that begs the question. If in bracket play for VCT, if you come through winners, there isn't much of an advantage. To be honest, at this point in time, I don't know what the exact thing is. I'm pretty sure you get an extra ban or an extra pick.
It is a 2-map ban advantage.
It's a 2-map ban advantage, right? That, in my opinion, is just not enough. What do you think, Jay?
I agree. It's not enough. It didn't feel like enough, especially for G2, right? Coming out so hot. I just don't think there's enough incentive to get to that upper bracket and maintain that momentum. I would say it needs a bigger advantage, and I think more picks and more first picks. And honestly, I'd put the number at like 4.
And again, we'll get to Justin here in a second, but just a reminder, everybody, the only series that G2 lost was to T1 in the finals. And if we go back, T1 lost in the first round and had to make the miraculous losers bracket run, but they each lost one series, and it was so close. You look at the KDs, you look at the round scores, you look at everything. This thing went down to the wire, and it's going back to what you said. T1 won it, in my opinion, not G2 losing it. But what other advantages can G2, or should they get, coming out of the winners bracket?
I really don't know what else you can give them. I think that I'm a supporter of giving teams an advantage for making it to winners bracket where it's possible, but for Valorant, I can't see. I don't think you can give them a 1-map advantage. Like if you start off with that, it's just that's way too much. And I don't know how you find that middle ground between just giving them some picks and stuff and like more advantage in the map drafting and not fully way into it. I almost feel like it's just the unfortunate reality that the benefit is that you had that direct line to the finals. At the end of the day, doesn't matter how you make it there, just be one of those two teams and then win the match on even footing at the end of the day. Because I feel like, if If history goes to prove that teams from the lower bracket just constantly win these tournaments, then yeah, we can come up with a different solution. But I don't know if across the span of multiple tournaments, if that will really be the case.
Yeah, and I know Valorant's hard, and that's necessarily why there isn't a bracket reset per se, because you can't run back another best of 5 or they're going to be there for 12, 14 hours. What if it was a best of 3 with a best of 3 reset? At least for grand finals. I don't know. I'm literally spitballing at this point.
I mean,
but
it
feels bad. It feels bad, and especially I would almost rather see another best of 3 just because of how close it was, and it was back and forth. They both had their opportunities, and like you said, at the end of the day.
Half the time, though, we only get a best of 3 in grand finals because that top team just wins, then you're getting less. Throwing just that full best of 5 in there between undeniably the 2 best teams, I think that's what everybody wants to see.
I agree with that as well. I do think that more Valorant is always important. It's what the fans want to see. It's what makes for a better game. It gives everyone a fair chance, right? You came in weak game 1, you came in weak game 2, you still get a redemption arc, right? I do agree with that. I don't think, though, that asking for more or even just a 2-map ban is too much. I think that they could have gotten more and still done less. Right? And again, I'm not saying that G2 lost here. I'm saying T1 won. Did G2 make some mistakes? Yes. Did they set themselves up for failure? I'm pretty sure they did.
At times, yeah.
But T1 played better Valorant here, and I do feel like G2 could have used more for having won so much. Again,
how many map bans does G2 need to win grand finals?
Okay, well, let's not get cocky here. Okay.
Because even if we change that, I think the result's probably still the same. I mean, obviously, what map you play does matter, but
it could help. It could help.
Yeah, because I would not have expected those 5 maps to go that way. So I feel like even if you change it up and you put different maps in different positions in that order, you probably still get the same result.
Well, they've also been pretty flawless on Pearl this season, and they lost on Pearl here.
Yeah.
So maybe you have a point.
Yeah, and that's where it's like you go back to my original point. That's why I think an additional pick or an additional ban or whatever the case may be just isn't enough of an advantage, in my opinion, when it comes to this. However, Justin, let's zoom out a little bit. Valorant Masters Bangkok as a whole spanned 2-3 weekends at most. What's your biggest surprise from the whole weekend? Or from the whole tournament?
I'll say for the whole tournament, just that all of the regions were super competitive. I thought it was awesome that we got a representative from all 4 major regions into the semifinals there. We got to really see them all duke it out and compete. So the fact that everybody is very close and that VCT and Valorant as a whole have a very competitive international ecosystem, I think that was the most awesome thing.
Awesome. What was your biggest surprise, Jay?
So this is a stat we probably should have said earlier, but my biggest surprise was that T1 won Masters in the best of 5 without a single positive KD from the entire team. That's an insane stat. It begs the question, right? Is playing the objective more important now? Is playing abilities more important now than fragging out? I've wondered this for a long time in Valorant, right? It's where Valorant separates from Counter-Strike in that it is a 5v5 shooter. You're planting bombs, right? It's essentially the same game, except for they have superpowers now. And so I've wondered, at what point were we going to see a shift in the meta that made it so that abilities outweighed frags? And I think we're reaching that, right? We've got the new agent Waylay with some crazy new abilities, which will definitely shift the meta. And then we see that T1 playing the meta consistently throughout this, doing well with the meta.
Yeah.
I don't know. It begs the question.
Yeah, no, that's a great point again, and it's a question that we almost glossed over. It's like they had to give somebody the MVP from the winning team, and they gave it to Meteor, and it's like, again, the dude had one pop-off game, but again, everybody on T1 went negative, which is crazy to me, but I think it begs to differ an even bigger conversation and topic that we could have at a totally separate time. But in my opinion, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the round, and the only thing that matters at the end of the day is the win. It doesn't matter what stats you put up on the board, and again, people love to look at the statistics, but at the end of the day, forget objective efficiency. It's just they won. Forget the stats. Forget the KDs. None of it matters.
Who's got the trophy that, again, G2 Valorant tweeted March 2nd at 4:43 a.m. This is going to look so good in our trophy cabinet.
I just love that it was empowering bad gamers across the world. You don't need to be positive to go and win a tournament.
Yeah.
It's good because most of you aren't.
Relatable.
Yeah.
Because we are all a little hard stuck. Now, on to some Call of Duty League. Had a crazy minor bracket this past week. And for those of you that don't know, Call of Duty goes from some online qualifiers into a minor bracket tournament, which then turn around and seeds the major bracket tournament qualifier. See, too many words, even I'm getting tongue-tied. However, that LAN is coming up in the next little bit. But we had the minor bracket this weekend. Not really surprised LA Thieves won. No question about it. But everything else this weekend was a big surprise for me. The fact that they won by the skin of their teeth was surprising. The fact that it was against the Vancouver Surge caught everybody off guard. Justin, are LA Thieves currently the team to beat?
I think they are. I mean, they look good. They're getting tons of match experience in very important, like high intensity, like stakes on the line games. And each tournament they look better and better. I think their ARs are really good. They impress me every tournament. I think 100% they are.
Jay?
I think they're a team to beat. I think you can make a case for a lot of teams right now.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, right? Optic, and we'll get to Optic in a second here. Optic will get to themselves, but Optic came out the gate in stage 1 looking good, right? Then we saw Carolina Royal Ravens go undefeated early season, right? Then we saw FaZe. FaZe won that minor. Or Major 1, sorry.
They did.
They did. They won that. They've been looking good consistently. LA Thieves have not looked good consistently until qualifiers into this LAN, right? And so I think the Thieves, they're pretty good. I would also say that you can make a case for Vancouver right now, who also put them on the run in that LAN tournament this past weekend.
Yeah, you're not wrong there one bit. But again, now that you were talking about Vancouver Surge, Jay, they're looking strong. Huge shout out to my boy Travis, Neptune, one of the Halo boys you got to represent in any way I physically possibly can. But are Surge for real going forward? Or was that a fluke weekend for them?
I don't think it was a fluke. I think they've looked good, obviously, since they replaced Hixie with Neptune. They 3-0'd, got an MVP from Neptune against Toronto in the upper semifinals. It's been back and forth in that best of 7 with LA Thieves, very close. Honestly, I think we see more of them going forward. Like I said, they're one of the teams to beat. We've got a good 4 contenders for that top spot going out of this. I would put them in top 3. I don't know if I'd put them in top 1 or 2 spot, but I put them in top 3 personally.
I think Vancouver's the real deal. I mean, they had a really good finals, obviously, against LA Thieves, and then the upset, 3-2 over the FaZe in the quarterfinal match was really tough. I mean, they won 2 very, very tough S&D, 6-5, both of them, to knock the FaZe out. And I don't know if the Thieves, do you think the Thieves would have beat FaZe? Like if Surge didn't do the work for them early on in the tournament, it might have been a completely different story in the finals. So while I do have the Thieves as my team to beat, the fact that FaZe went out kind of early like that to a Surge who looked really good, there's some questions in my head. I agree with that kind of like top 3 sentiment there.
Yeah, I think LAN settles all, and again, another online tournament, so only time will tell when we get to LAN for this next major, but they're looking good, but I think I have to agree with Jay here. I think they're one of the teams to beat, but not the team to beat currently. Yet again, you had Atlanta FaZe do well in qualifiers minor in the first major. You're having LA Thieves do well in the qualifiers, the minor, and let's see if they could do it in the major as well.
I've heard some contrarians to the Thieves kind of say that this, the minor tournament's not a real chip. You think there's any validity to that? I feel like maybe some other fandoms had that sentiment thrown at them earlier on in 2024, and it might be being thrown back at the Thieves right now.
I mean, it is a step on the road, but dude, it's real. It's very much real. I think there's a lot of hype and momentum that goes into these tournaments. Yes, it's an online qualifier. Yes, it's a little shaky at like the time point in the year that it's at, but honestly, yes, like this is where teams pick up momentum, and I think we will see Vancouver Surge come out the gate with a lot more fire for the rest of the season because of that, and some other teams, right? Carolina Royal Ravens, still pretty good, still my pick, still my favorite.
Cloud9 looked pretty good too. They took a map off. They took a map off the Thieves. They got my early upset that I predicted, and then fell to the eventual winner. So yeah, a lot of good teams out there.
So then I'll ask really quick before we move on to the next question. A quick ranking, 1 through 4. What do you got, Jay?
Honestly, I still think at the end of this season and going towards the rest of the season from this specific tournament, and put FaZe my number 1.
Okay.
Thieves very close second.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Ravens in third.
Okay.
It's a crazy pick, I know. And then I would put, it's between Cloud9 and Surge, but honestly, I'm gonna give it to the Surge just because of how well they did in this tournament.
I don't even have to go because that literally is my current top 4, Justin. How about you?
I think as much as I like Cloud9, I think I'm probably just sticking with the top 4 from this one. I'll probably go in a slightly different order. Just Thieves, FaZe, Surge, Carolina.
Okay.
I think I mixed up the first. I'm throwing out the city and the org in different orders there, but yeah, those are my guys.
Happy you got Carolina in there, Justin.
Yep.
Yeah. No. How can you not though? Yet again, they haven't peered into the top 3 yet, but they're a consistent top 4 finisher every single week. But you know who we left out of there?
We talked about all the good teams already, right?
Right.
We talked about all the good teams, and the team that we're about to talk to was going into the season. We thought it was going to be a 3-horse race. We thought it was going to be LA Thieves. We thought it was going to be Atlanta FaZe, and we thought it was going to be Optic in the Greenwall. However, the wheels fall off, the roof's blown off. I don't even know what's left in the house anymore. But talk about surprises and not surprises from this weekend. Another thing that wasn't surprising, Optic beat Vegas Falcons. However, some things that caught us off guard was the fact that they dropped a map to them and how close each individual game and map was. It was crazy. If you would have sent that scoreboard to me months ago, I would have thought you were crazy and it was photoshopped. However, after that little series win that they had in round 1, they didn't even take a single map or even look competitive against Toronto Ultra. Fell 3-0 to them. So, Jay, is Optic effectively done, or at least this version of the team?
There's no question. They're dead in the water. Optic, it's bad optics.
Boo. Pause for
Bad
laughter.
gaming as well, right?
Bad gaming. I mean, Kenny goes -13 on vault control. Almost 40 deaths. 40 deaths. Woo! I don't suddenly feel so hard stuck anymore.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Optics, the downfall is real. They're about as unresolvable as you could be as a problem. I think if you really just want to give up on everything, you could play them again in the next one, but I would be looking to make changes. And the changes rhyme with the name Vinny.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow, we're saying it. We're calling out the
Late in
actual
the show,
names.
late in the Hardstuck show, we get very savage.
Is it just one? Is it just one change that needs to be made? Because they've already 2-3 weeks ago at time of recording this that they already made one singular roster change. Do they have to make wholesale changes? Do they need to go out and get a player like Joe Deceives? Do they even maybe need to take the Neptune Surge duo and try and be like Surge? Pull him over with that Greenwall money a little bit.
I hope they don't take Neptune. I like that storyline. I like him on Surge. I mean, you can make it a case for Pred, and you could also make a case for Shotzi just after this weekend.
As much as it pains me to say, I agree.
I know.
Yeah.
It sucks, right? Because all the hype that goes into that. But he was just as bad as Kenny on vault control in that last map. So I don't know. I think Pred has been a problem, obviously, since the switch up, and maybe it's just like team configuration overall. Maybe just like as a team, they just don't feel cohesive together. And like, I'm sure they're all good players. We know they're all good players, right?
No question.
They've all been consistent in the last few years, but it's like, as a unit, that just might not work.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure who nobody's really even standing out to me like I really want to keep them. So I feel like you might as well just keep your options open and try to figure out what's the best. Can I get a good duo? Can I get a full trio of some kind? I mean, that would be a crazy move to pull 3 people from another team. But if anybody could pull it off, Optic could.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe just sign the entire FaZe Black roster.
Yeah.
Give the Challengers roster a shot.
I like it.
They'd probably win 3-1 against Vegas Falcons as well. Who knows?
They probably feel like they have nothing to lose. I mean, that's the kind of people that you need to put into that position, because when you have all the spotlights on you, all the fans looking at you, tuning into your streams, the pressure just becomes insurmountable.
Motivate them a little bit.
Yeah, I think we beat up Optic enough, and I think they're going to continue to beat up themselves, and we'll see what changes are made here in the near future. However, G2, we already talked about them in the Valorant Grand Finals. They were also in the Grand Finals for LEC this week as well. Justin, did they throw as well, or what ultimately had them falling short as well?
Yeah, they threw honestly pretty hard.
Wow.
Not really in the draft or anything. They just completely got skill diffed by a team that they should just be able to just beat with their pure hands. I thought their drafts were really good, and it was just a redemption arc for some of these former G2 players, both Yike and Targamas, a jungle and support player, used to be on that G2 team, got moved off at different times and stuff. Yike specifically this last season was able to get revenge on Skumon and all of his former teammates. I'm sure the relationship is good, but that was just such a satisfying run for Carmine Corp, who has been kind of carrying the back, one of these two orgs in Europe who's been just putting so much viewership into the region, pretty much solo carrying that for them. So Carmine did a lot, but G2 definitely threw it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's actually pretty cool that they just even get to 2 finals in one weekend. That's awesome to see from one specific esports org. We used to see just quote-unquote dynasties like that in the past from orgs like TSM, right? So it's really cool to see that from G2 here. They even tweeted it themselves. They said, our most recent results by title. In League, they lost to KC in the LEC final. In HEL, lost to Valority in Hextech series. In Valorant, lost to T1 in Masters final. Goes in, lost to GX and GC. Rocker lost in C9 in Minor 2. CS, they lost to FaZe and IEM Katowice. Aries lost to Fluffy, Gangsters, and CCT Season 2. And then finally, on R6, they lost to Oxygen on the stage at the R6. So,
Bunch of bridesmaids.
It's interesting, right?
Wow, that's great.
That's great.
I mean, yeah.
Hey, they're getting there,
Second's
though, right?
good.
It is good. It's nothing. It's something to hang your hat on, and maybe they'll get
Silver.
across the finish line eventually. Right?
But that's what's great, right? We're placing high at all these events. So I don't think that this is sad for them. Obviously, it's sad in the way that they don't get the finish when they should, especially in titles like Valorant or in League. But just to make it to, that's 8 finals or S-tier matches just in recent history. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully one day they'll get to finish. But speaking of finish, that's going to do it for us here today, folks. Hope you enjoyed your time here today on Hardstuck. Until next time.
I was waiting.